Okay, good morning. Good morning. We so thank you for being here this Wednesday morning. And it's 9 o'clock, and we know how busy everyone is, and we respect that. So we like to start right on time. I'm Diane Michael. I'm the host of today's ProServe Pools webinar. We're so thankful to have you. We are beginning. This is our marketing disclaimer for the recording. By being involved in this platform, you are authorizing permission for this to be videotaped and uploaded to our website and to use in our marketing materials. Additionally, no reproduction or use of this video may be made without prior written consent. Again, thank you so much for being here this morning for our program, Tips for Getting Your Pool Ready for the Season. The team from ProServe Pools has a great presentation in store for you today. So again, thank you for being here to learn. We would love to see where you're coming in from. If you're a board member, if you're a CAM, if you would be so kind, just put that in the chat now so that we can see where you're from. And then speaking of chat, if you have any questions during the presentation, I ask that you please have them ready, but to wait until the end so that we can cover all of the materials before questions. And as always, please keep yourself muted so there's not feedback on the video. Additionally, at the end, I will send in the chat an email address where you can schedule a consultation for your association for ProServe Pools. It is my honor this morning to introduce ProServe's owner. Please meet Shawn. After receiving his bachelor's, Shawn Lane worked in corporate America for some time. He had worked for Tom with ProServe when he was in high school and decided to get back into the industry, bringing with him the tools and business essentials that he learned along the way. His experience in corporations brought best practices to ProServe, and today it's still a thriving, local community-minded, family-run business for nearly 40 years. Please welcome Shawn Lane with ProServe Pools.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. And we are a family business. In fact, it's an honor, and it's really cool for me to have. I'll come into the office someday, and my mom's putting checks in and doing that kind of work, and my daughter is helping us on the marketing side, and she's graduating, thank God, from UNAP after 4 wonderful years, and then of course my wife. So that we are a family business. Well, so let me get to it. All right, who's heard of the term race ready? If you've ever been in around racing, you know that you have a responsibility as a team to be race ready before you get on that track. And that race ready both impacts the safety of the other drivers that are on that track and the other crews. So we apply that same principle at ProServe Pools toward the season. We want to make sure that our properties, we manage about 100 commercial properties, are season ready for the upcoming spring break, summer season. So that's what we're going to be focused on this morning, is making sure, kind of sharing with you our best practices on what we do to ensure that these properties are season ready. And we want to lower the stress. You guys as CAMs, I want to tell you, you sit in a chair that even as a business owner, I've got 22 employees here, the great team, but you CAMs, I think, are under a lot of that. And we're hopeful that this might make your job a little bit easier. So the first part of it is there's three components that we can break it down to be season ready. And the first one is really the health of the water. In this business, the hidden secret to, especially commercial, residential is very forgiving. Commercial is not forgiving in June, July, and August. So you want to make sure that the chemistry is right. That's the hidden secret to this business. And you can't see it. It's impossible. Well, there's certain things you can see, but I promise you, you can walk up to a blue pool. That does not mean that it's season ready. And that water can also damage some important equipment I'll talk about in a second. The second component is the environment around that pool. So as CAMs, you've got properties that are right on the beach, a lot of beach sand, or you've got properties that are on the mainland side and they've got those beautiful oak trees. So I'll talk a little bit about where that needs to be cleaned up. Trim those trees now. Don't wait. We don't want all those organics in that water. That does cause damage downstream. And then the third area is on the equipment side. That's the heartbeat of that pool. And commercial, again, is Very different than residential. You don't have the leniency like you would with a residential pool. So make sure that all the equipment side is ready, both from a filtration and a sanitation perspective. So those are the three categories we're going to talk about this morning. But I'll give you an example first on an autofill. Even new pools, which we love those, they come with newer technology. In my opinion, some of them are much easier to maintain. But if there's a challenge with them, you may have a new pool where the autofill doesn't work. And we had one a year ago where it was constantly overflowing that pool. It was not maintainable. So within an hour or so, we figured it out and we solved that problem, and we helped that customer today. So that's one of the things you got to get ahead of. All right, let's move to water chemistry. Water chemistry is, again, you can go out when you're doing your property walks and you're looking at your pool. You're walking out there like most folks, and you're going, well, it's blue. That looks good. That's not necessarily good. You've got to get beyond just blue to the point where that blue water can still cause that brand new $6,000 heater to void the warranty and that heat exchanger to leak, and it won't be covered under warranty. The manufacturers, Raypak, AquaCal, Hayward, they've gotten much more sophisticated and demanding and less lenient in where they're giving warranties. And if the water chemistry was the issue, and they can tell, they will not warranty, unfortunately, that heat exchangers. So again, blue water doesn't mean that it's not going to void that warranty. The second category would be on the finish side. Water is going to pull what it wants. And if the calcium level is too low and you just finished a $50,000 pool renovation, that pool plaster will pull, that water will pull calcium right out of that pool finish. And when it does that, it voids the warranty on that $50,000 pool finish job that you did. So again, just because it's blue doesn't matter. And it's common for me, I'll share this with a CAM and they'll come back and say, like anyone would, well, listen, we passed our health inspection. It doesn't matter. The health department, they only test for certain parts of the water chemistry. They do not test for the water chemistry component that voids the heater warranty. They do not test for, so that's alkalinity. They do not test for the part that is aggressive to that pool finish, calcium. It's just not part of what they do once they've opened the pool for the first time. The health inspector, and by the way, we do have right now, in my professional opinion, some of the best. We've got some that are very diligent. They've made some great changes there. They're tracking a lot of things that are better. They're forcing diligence is what they're doing. They're doing their job. And so the health inspector, they're focused on the safety of the swimmer. They are not focused on the longevity of the equipment. It's just not part of what their responsibility is. That's your pool contractor of record, and that's also the CAM's responsibility. So just make sure, remember that. The health department's not doing that. And I hear that a lot. Well, the health department doesn't. No, they don't. It's just not their role. Another important area that's hidden in the water is the manual dosing. So it's very common practice in our industry to manually dose to a commercial pool, which is against code. There's reasons why you don't want to do that on an ongoing basis. Now, there are reasons why you have to do it if there's been an equipment failure, but it's very clear you don't do that on an ongoing basis. It's bad for the equipment, it's bad for the water chemistry, and it's not safe for the swimmers. So when a feeder is broke, make sure all those feeders are working. Sometimes we'll work with a property and say, well, we don't have the budget for it right now. The budget's wrong, and you have to be ready for that. So make sure that you've got those feeders replaced. And so you're not forcing your provider or your maintenance staff to do manual dosing. That's just not the right way to do it. It's a very poor decision. So make sure you're season ready for that. The next piece is, now the health department does check for this piece of the water chemistry. It's what slows down the UV rays from sucking the chlorine, from pulling the chlorine right out of the pool. So, but here's what's interesting though. They only make sure that it doesn't reach a high level. So they give us a range to work in. And if it's above a certain level, because it slows down the chlorine's ability to do its job, they'll close that. That's an immediate closure. A lot of times they will give you a little grace, and they'll give you 24 hours or a certain period of time. But that's typically not a problem. The problem typically is there's none of that chemical in there that slows down the UV rays from pulling the chlorine out. That's almost always when I do inspections or do site visits. There's almost never do I find that chemical in the water. The technicians aren't putting it in. So that's a part you might say, well, it doesn't matter because our contract covers, our service company provides the chlorine. That's their responsibility. I'm not worried about that. Please don't take that position. Yes. The downstream negative effects of not having that UV protection has two negative outcomes. Number one, during season, they will not keep up. No matter what anyone says, you will not be able to keep up in August when the water's over 95 degrees. You've got heavy bathing loads. The days are long. It just won't keep up. Secondly, let's say they can keep up, which they won't. They're going to use 7 times as much chlorine in that pool than if they had the UV protection. The negative impact of that is there's a lot of salt in the chlorine that's being used in this marketplace, and the water will start tasting salty, and it'll lead to other issues like the handrails in the pool, stainless steel handrails and ladders will be damaged. So make sure that the water chemistry is right, so that the swimmers are safe. The pool is easier to maintain during season. The wintertime is super easy. That's a very forgiving time of season other than the leaves. Let me move to the next point. Next point is algae. So again, going back to June, July, August, specifically August, if you have pools that have had black algae in the past, that's another reason why you want to make sure that they have that UV protection in the chemistry. Because what will happen is, since they're constantly fighting keeping a high free chlorine level, that black algae loves that. They love that there's no chlorine in that water. They love that the chlorine's at a lower level. So that black algae will spread like cancer, and especially on an older finish that's got that is pitted, and it loves that environment. So you want to be ready. You have to treat that algae the visit that you see it. You can do some spot treating, close the pool for a short period of time, or if it's gone further, then you may need to close it for 24 hours, but you can't let that go. So you schedule. So make sure that you're season ready on the water chemistry side. And if there's any algae, let's get it treated now. Okay, well, let me move past that point. The next point would be on the equipment side. So with the equipment, it's important that you keep what's called an equipment profile. The profile, in our world that, you as CAMs you work in, or if you're on the board, as service companies, there's constant churn. So what that means is there's a new CAM coming in, or a new CAM company coming in, or a new board member coming in, or a new service company comes in. It's very common. New board comes in and they say, well, the other guys didn't know what they were doing. Let's get a new service company in here, or let's get a new CAM in here. So with all that, that's the reality of this industry. To keep it maintainable in the integrity of the operations of the biggest asset, most important asset you have, you got to have it profiled. You have to have it written down. The profile would include every piece of equipment you have: pump, filter, chlorinators, sanitizers, everything that you've got. You want to keep that in the profile, and you keep dates on it, and you keep model numbers and those kind of things. So we have a software package for our customers that we build that out, and so that we're able to run reports, and we know which of our customers haven't replaced their filter, and when they've replaced it, and what the model was, and how many, and what was it cost. We track all of that data so that we're better able to serve our customers and get ahead of it. You don't want to replace a filter when it's too late. When the diaper's full, you don't love on it. You don't try to clean it one more time. You throw it away. and you replace the diaper. The filter is the same thing. When filters are replaced, um, they give they make it easier on the technician, and that does matter, both to the property and the pool and the swimmers and your service provider. You do want to make your property easier to maintain because then you just get a better service. Secondly, filters um, are a low cost way to extend the life of the rest of the equipment. So just imagine you've got filters that are wore out and they've got holes in them, and all you're doing is that's the point of least resistance. You're pushing all of that um, negative debris, scum, whatever you want to call it, back into the pool. You're not filtering properly, so that's not right for the swimmers. Secondly, it filters that are full that cause the pump to be under duress, and a pump is expensive and filters are cheap. So replace the filters. Um, let me move past filters to heaters and heater life. Um, Again, I use that term $6,000 for a heater, in that range. But um, you want to make sure that you've adjusted the water flow to the heater. So let me give you a big example. The Grand Canyon was cut by water, right? And if you've ever been to Grand Canyon, it's beautiful, but you're just in awe as to how could water do that? Well, that same principle applies to a heater. If you're pushing 100 gallons a minute through a heater during the summertime, that's not correct. And what you're doing is you're prematurely wearing out that heat exchanger. So, but you do want to push some water so it stays fresh in there. So a good technician will cut down the water flow to that heater and push and not prematurely wear out that heat exchanger. Um, Chemical feeders, another pair, is another area. We've had cases where a property will say, wait weeks and weeks to approve to have a chemical feeder. Don't do that. Get ahead of it right now. Go ahead and get approval to have those chemical feeders replaced. It's morally correct. It's per code. It enables your technician who it works really hard during the summer season to properly maintain that pool. It's just the right thing to do. So get approval now. Secondly, those chemical feeders that are working today, have the tubes replaced on them now. I promise you they go bad. And if you replace them now, preventive maintenance, just like you do on with elevators, but at a much lower cost, then you're much more likely not to have a disruption on the 4th of July weekend, because that's when they break, right? So make sure and do some preventative maintenance on that now, or you can wait until it's a problem and then you're mad at your service company and then the property's mad at you. And it's just like this vicious cycle, right? Pool equipment. So there's been advances there where, we used to install these energy hog, loud, single speed pumps, and the government has required now for residential, eventually it's coming to the commercial side, that they are required for replacements. They're energy efficient. They're much quieter. We've run metrics where they save about $300 a month in electricity, and they last longer. So get ahead of that too. In the last 3 seasons since COVID, we've had issues getting that equipment. Now the supply chain is a little better, but it's still hit or miss. And I do forecast that this summer there's going to be a loss on those too. We've had pools be down for a month, which is crazy. Okay, so I'm going to move off of equipment, but I think my closure on this piece is don't kick the can, get ahead of it, do some preventative maintenance, replace the diaper. Do it now. Don't wait till you're in season. Okay. If you've ever had a loved one that's disabled, you're going to understand our position on this topic. We believe we have a moral responsibility to ensure chair lifts work. If you've ever had a family member in a wheelchair, try to get into a pool where they're embarrassed and the battery doesn't work on the chair lift, don't do that. Get ahead of that. Get that chair lift properly maintained, and have it checked today. Next area is ladders. So these are items that are checked by the inspector, the ladders. There's two common issues with ladders. They're easy to fix, not a big deal, but make sure and check on these. One is the gap between the ladder and the wall of the pool. The second one is the tread. There's typically 3 treads, sometimes 4, typically 3 on ladders. Make sure that they're not cracked or broke. There'll be 2 pieces on the left and right hand side of each tread that'll show you if it needs to be replaced or not. Not a big deal. The next item, and those two, the first 2 items should be done by a licensed contractor. The next one is life rings and throw lines. These are the items where you go to the pool deck and you say, oh my God, this never gets used. Well, it's in the code. Hopefully it never gets used, but you do not want to be the property where Morgan & Morgan says there was no throw line or it snapped when it was being used. So make sure that those are low cost items and it's morally the right thing to do. Have those replaced. So make that season ready. Another safeguard to ensure the property's most asset is safe is the monitoring of the water chemistry. So there's been some great advancements. And this was pushed on the residential side and it bled over into the commercial side where we have properties now where we can monitor and we receive text alert and email alerts if there's an equipment failure. So, through the years, we've had properties where a guest will come to a cam and then the cam will come to us and they'll make this accusation. My bathing suit was bleached out based on that spa or that pool. Well, that's extremely highly unlikely that really happened. But how do we prove it? Or the second item we'll get is, hey, I got a rash from your pool. It's not what happened, but how do we prove it? So now we have the technology and the ability to not only deliver a better quality of service to our properties, but we can also prove that, no, that's not what happened. We have all the data, all the logging. Your spa and your pool was tested once every 3 minutes, and here's the data. We also have, it helps make it season ready by, you want to find out when there's an issue before there's an issue on the 4th of July weekend. You want to find out on the 3rd at 5 p.m., not on the 4th at noon, because that filter is not going to catch back up from that bathing load and those drinkers that day. So make sure, take a look at your equipment and see, going green in the pool business, there's never really been a payback for anything that's done in this industry until the energy efficient pumps came out. And now they literally pay for themselves and they last longer. The single speed motors, I would tell every property, do not waste your money on those motors. They are not the quality they used to be. They're just not. They don't last the way they used to last. And all they do is consume way too much electricity. So get ready with that. Be prepared. Do not, here's what happens in this industry. The pump goes down, the motor goes down, everybody's all excited. Now you got to get approval. Get approval now. Get approval now for the more expensive upfront, energy efficient pumps that pay for themselves and last longer. Get the approval now. The next piece would be on commercial salt systems. In the past, to get season ready, they really didn't pay for themselves, but now the cost of chlorine has more than doubled over the last couple of years. So now it does make sense financially, if you look at the payback period and the return on investment, to be season ready with salt systems. Makes it easier for your maintenance team. It's less chemicals. Some people say it makes their skin feel better. I'll go silent on that. But I am based on the commercial pools that we have converted to salt, we are heavy believers in that and see the value to that system. Okay, let's now move to, we just got season ready. We've gone through a checklist. The health department comes out, inspects the pool, and they're shaking their head. They're like, what just happened here? I can't believe it. It looks awesome. These guys are ready. Your guests are happy, your owners are happy. Maybe they did spend a little bit of money they didn't have in the budget, but they feel comfortable and confident that they're race ready, season ready. Let's now move into the next phase. Now we're going to maintain this thing. Now we want to make sure that we're meeting our moral responsibility for the safety of that swimmer. So if I were you, as a cam, I would get out of my chair when you're walking that pool deck, get in that pump room, and don't worry about anything you see in there. Go to one place. Go to that clipboard. And if it's not in there, that's a problem. The health inspector is going to write that up. It needs to be in there. It needs to be right on site. But look at that piece of paper, that monthly log. You don't have to understand the numbers. You don't have to understand anything about it, but just see if it's telling the truth. So number one, it's going to say the days that the pool is being maintained. If it's written in on every single day and it's only being maintained 3 days a week, that's a lie. And in my upbringing, if you lie, it's hard to believe anything after that. So ask some questions about that. We don't, as our company, we've decided that we're not going to lie about it. We're not going to pencil whip a health sheet and put in stuff that's not true and we weren't there. So start with that. The next thing you can move to is what work's being done on that pool while that technician's there. Are they managing the flow? When was the filters backwashed? That's really, that's a recipe. That's an important piece to help the technician know the health of that pool and how often you're backwashing. If it's every visit, the filter in the diaper needs to be thrown away and it needs to be replaced. If the pool is not holding chlorine, then that UV protection needs to be added. And you can look at the numbers and it'll tell you that. So anyway, there's many other things, but to close on that, make sure that you check that log. Mistakes that we see in the industry, this is not in our budget, or the budget's wrong. If we look at what happened with the economy the last few years and the rate of inflation, if everything's not gone up, then something's wrong. So make sure, we have a moral and legal responsibility to provide the safety of the swimmers. And if it's not in the budget, then it's got to be added. It's just as simple as that to maintain the integrity of that pool. We get called to properties that have been band-aided for decades, and we tell them right up front, we got to do a catch-up period here. We got to catch up for not doing past maintenance, and so that's problems that we typically see where the budget wasn't right or the guidance wasn't given, those kind of things. The last piece I think on mistakes we see is I've seen properties go with a lower price. Let me explain to you what that means. We analyze everything. So we know every single piece of cost, every piece of equipment that's going in there, every minute that's spent on the site, so labor and materials. It's just math. So if the price is lower, a provider cannot afford to purchase the chemicals required and the labor required to do that service effectively. But you won't see it. You won't see it until you do the proper testing, you get the proper knowledge. So those are some mistakes we've seen for sure. I think with that, we're going to move to any questions you got, and I'll summarize as very quickly, but go through your checklist, make sure you're season ready. Remember the hidden cost of water that you look like that is blue and you go, hey, this is fine, this is balanced. Well, no, there's a hidden cost to that. Don't walk away from that. Get approvals now. Don't wait. And now you're scrambling to get some approvals for something that's got to be done anyway. It's coming. Make moral decisions on items like the chairlift and reduce your risk by automating some of those processes.
Thank you, Shawn. I have a quick question. So when an association, a CAM, or a board member asks you to come to a property and to just check what they're doing with their pool, what does that look like?
We have a checklist that we go through, and in our company, we do it all when it comes to commercial pools. So we cover everything from water chemistry. So again, the importance of water chemistry is that $5,000-6,000 heater protection and that $50,000 pool finish. Then we move out of water chemistry into hydraulics and equipment. So in that pump room, what do the filters look like? Are they baggy? Does a diaper need to be thrown away? Is the vacuum gauge working? A lot of these properties don't have that, and that is the most important gauge in that pump room. It tells you the health. So we're looking at the health. The chemical feeders, you got to get ahead of that. There's some common issues there that we can see, and we can tell you, why other issues are having. And then we move into the pool finish and the tile and the handrails and those types of things. So those are the three categories.
Okay, anyone else have any questions? Harley Cooper from Southern States Management Group said, great job, Shawn. Everybody else, thank you so much for being here. Now's the time to ask any good questions. While you are able to unmute yourself, I'm also going to throw in to the chat more information on ProServe Pools for you to share with anyone else. We would love the referrals and any opportunities to work with you in the future.
And Diane, I'd like to invite anyone in too. They can invite their friends into our facility on US 1 in Port Orange. We're just across the street from Hidden Treasure. We'll walk them through our warehouse and show them a little bit of what we talked about today. And in our showroom, we can show them, common issues with tile and finish, and then of course we can show them water chemistry and how that's done.
That's great. Okay, thank you so much, everyone, for being here. We appreciate your time.
Thank
Have a
you.
great
Have a great
rest of your
day.
day.
Bye.